Welcome to our weekly 3-minute therapy podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein, clinical psychologist and author of 3-Minute Therapy. And I'm here with my co-host, Mick Berry. We discuss things related to emotional and behavioral problems because we have a solution, and it's called REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, which was devised by Albert Ellis in the 1950s, who was a pioneer in the field of psychotherapy. And the basic premise of REBT is that our emotions and behaviors don't come from situations, but rather our emotions and behaviors come from our thinking about situations. And that's a very powerful idea, because if you don't like what you're doing and you don't like how you're feeling, then you can change that, especially if what you're doing is self-destructive, or what you're feeling is disturbed, like anxiety, depression, and anger. You can change that by looking at the thinking that's causing that. And normally look for musts, shoulds, I can't stand it, and it's awful. My life must go well, and if it doesn't, it's awful. Others must treat me well, and if they don't, uh, they're horrible people, and I must do well, and if I do poorly, that means I'm no good. So look for your must and question, challenge, and contradict your musts. Mick, did you want to add to that?
Well, you said the premise of REBT. I think it's more than that. It's an assertion. It's also the discovery of Albert Ellis and the application of it in REBT, that our thoughts are what determine our feelings. So I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
say it's really more than a premise. It's a reality that
right.
REBT recognizes that existed before REBT and Albert Ellis. Albert Ellis simply acknowledged or pinpointed what it is that creates human disturbance.
Yeah, and it's not exactly a discovery of Albert Ellis, because he cites Stoics like Epictetus, who says it's not events themselves, but it's our opinions about events that cause our emotions. So it has a rich history. So today we're going to be discussing REBT and suffering. And suffering is could be emotional or physical, and it's a type of distress, physical distress or pain, or emotional disturbance, such as anxiety, depression, or anger. And when you have emotional suffering, the the solution is to look at your must and look at your shoulds. And some of the common demands that people have that cause their suffering are demands such as, I must not feel uncomfortable. And this physical pain must not happen to me, or these unfortunate events must not happen to me. And I should have done something to have avoided it. And because I didn't, this proves I'm no good. And I should have done better. And if I had done better, I would not have these problems. And my life must always be fair. And it's awful, terrible, and horrible that my life is unfair. I I can't stand these problems that I'm having. So those are some of the irrational beliefs that people often uh, entertain that causes their emotional suffering. Mick, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, if you want to take that into the realm of Eastern philosophies and the concept of karma, you're familiar with karma?
Why don't you tell our audience what that is?
Well, as I understand it, karma is that which you reap is what you'll sow. Okay. And so that when you create situations in the universe, then the good situations come back to reward you, or the bad situations come back to haunt you. And this is really playing in. If this is the way you think, now somebody might say, I'm not understanding karma, and that's possible. However, if that is an understanding of karma, this plays into exactly the idea that life must be fair. When I do something well, then something good must happen to me because of it. And if you get into this mindset, it's a great way to drive yourself crazy, because if you're driving down the street and somebody runs a red light and smashes into your car, you could easily say, what did I do to deserve this? What was my bad karma in the past? Now, I have seen people do that, and I even have bought into it at one point in my life, and I learned to abandon thinking that way. It's a ridiculous way to think. Yes, if I loan somebody $100 and 2 years later I need $100 and they're willing to loan me $100, then that is very good karma. It's an understanding among people, but they are not obligated to do it. If I loan somebody $100 and then 2 years later I want to borrow $100 from them, and they say, no, I can't help you out, then I could put a mental note here. Well, that's the last time I'm going to help that person. They're not helping me, but they're free to not help me if that's what they choose to do. Okay, so in the realm of human interaction, you could say that something like karma or reciprocation does occur, but it still does not have to occur.
That's right. It's not necessary. And if you think it has to occur, someone must reciprocate, then all you get is disturbing yourself, which certainly doesn't help.
And let's say I was in that situation and somebody said, no, I can't lend it to you. If I blow up and say, well, you rotten son of a bitch, it's probably not going to help the situation. But if I'm able to say, well, it's your choice. However, I lent you $100 2 years ago. I think it's only fair if you lend me $100 right now. How are you feeling about it? And they could say, well, I haven't got $100 to lend you. And I said, well, okay, that's good information to know, rather than you just, in any case, there can be a discussion. If I demand that they must do what I want them to do, to imitate Albert Ellis, then I'm only going to make it untenable to deal with the situation and come up with a solution.
Yeah, and also if you demand other people do what you want them to do, not only will that tend to alienate the other person, but it also eats you up inside. So it's a lose-lose proposition. Yeah.
Well, I was saying by being eaten up inside, I would be ill-equipped to deal with it and be able to have the capacity to think of what might the solution be in this situation.
Yeah. And the solution to uh, emotional suffering is acceptance. Accept the fact that life, pain and difficulty in life is inevitable, and demands just turn pain and discomfort in life into suffering. So give up your demands, give up your musts, and prefer, desire, and wish that your life has minimum suffering in it, but don't demand it. Nick?
Well, I was going to say, and I've mentioned this before, and it's a mistake I have made. Accepting does not mean resignation. I don't have to just resign myself. Well, life is suffering, so I'm not going to go to work and I'm just going to let things go haywire in my life because life is suffering, and so I can be miserable and I can learn to or I can live in circumstances I define as miserable or very, very adverse circumstances and not do anything about it. No, acceptance means acknowledging that this can happen. And if it can happen, and if there's any way I would like to avoid this situation, then okay, I'll acknowledge I can accept life can be this way. Now, what can I do to possibly change these circumstances so I'm living in a situation that I really do enjoy?
Yes, very good. That's a very important point. And also, similarly, accepting yourself does not mean that it's okay when you screw up. It just means you're not going to put yourself down. You're still going to accept yourself as the imperfect human you are, who often makes mistakes and does poorly, but can learn from that to try to do better in the future. Mick, I have nothing additional to say. Would you like to add
Well,
something?
I wanted to say one other thing. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because really, the way we disturb ourselves is saying, believing you're no good, you're a worthless worm, or the world is terrible, the world is awful, or I'm no good and I'm a worthless worm. And all three of those are incorrect. And many, I tell me if you think this is correct, but I think most people have a big problem with the putting themselves down rather than putting other people down and putting the world down. I think that is probably the most common problem. Is that correct?
I believe so. Uh, I haven't seen any statistics on this, but I think people are more likely to put themselves down than put others down. But some people have more of an anger problem than a self-downing problem. But as you're pointing out, I think that's in the minority. Uh, Now, one of the reasons why it may seem that other people put others down or get angry more than they put themselves down is when someone is angry, you can observe that. It's evident. But when someone's putting themselves down, that's internal, and you don't know about that. Mick?
Oh, that's a very good point. I will say though that there are some people, I think you've mentioned this to me, prisoners have very, very high opinions of themselves. And one of the things that happens if you have a habit of if I make a mistake, I'm worthless, then what you'll tend to do is never admit to your mistakes. And it's possible to never put yourself down whatsoever, but then put the world down and put everybody else down. They're the ones who are at fault. I'm absolutely perfect. And so it is possible to not put yourself down at all while still holding the world and other people in utter contempt.
Yeah, right. But the solution is don't have utter contempt for yourself or others. Others are going to screw up, treat you poorly. They're going to put themselves first. So you might as well put yourself first and the people you care about close second.
Yeah. And so, and then the world, of course, you don't want to put the world down. I was thinking of this morning, Michael. One of the things that I think you and I deal with in frustration is knowing that we have a solution so that people can eradicate their emotional problems. However, getting the word out and teaching it to people can be quite difficult because, as we know, we're a very tiny corner on YouTube and we have a very small following, and we're trying to let people know about this, but it is not reaching nearly as many people as we would like. Whereas when I forget the man's name, there was some self-help guru back in the 80s when he came to the Bay Area, he sold out the Oakland Coliseum.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Or
know.
maybe it was the Oakland Arena. It was John Bradshaw. He sold
Uh,
out the Oakland Arena.
uh,
Whereas when Albert Ellis came at that time, he had a seminar where about 150 people showed up.
right, right. And John Bradshaw had the brilliant idea of your inner child. And
Oh, he does. Well, we know what Albert Ellis said about that, and I quoted him in one of my one-man shows. The only people with inner children are women who are pregnant.
right, yeah, yeah. Well, we tend to take things literally.
Well, I think that's a good way to take them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Mick. I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein. I have a website, 3minutetherapy.com. I'd also like to thank Niraj Nanal, who is a regular viewer of ours who suggested this topic. And I'd like to thank Chris Rossini, our tech engineer. Comment below if you have suggestions for future podcasts or you'd like to be a guest. We've had a few guests recently. Give us a thumbs up if you like this, and also ask questions in the comments below. And volunteer, as I said. And I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein, psychologist and author. And thanks, Mick Berry. And subscribe to the 3 Minute Therapy podcast to do what, Mick?
to stay on the rational side of life and suffering.